Well, before CJ Stroud turned out a rookie season for the ages, he was being picked apart by the media and doubted in the pre-draft process, leading to him being overlooked by Carolina with the first overall pick and instead landing with Houston at second overall. Since then, the two franchises picking at the top of the 2023 NFL draft have traveled in entirely different directions, and with Houston now looking to set to contend for the AFC title and Carolina being back at the bottom of the pile. So, given how many records Stroud broke as a rookie and how much he has transformed Houston, why didn't he get taken first overall? Let's find out. CJ Stroud was a revelation in the 2023 season. He quickly established himself as a serious player, and it didn't take long for him to be churning out performances that even a seasoned veteran would be proud of. He was composed under center, could deliver the ball with perfect accuracy, and proved that his performances improved in pressure situations rather than declined. His 470 yards and 5 touchdowns against Tampa Bay set new NFL records for a rookie, and there were several others that he broke as well. It was a truly remarkable effort from the rookie sensation that saw the Houston Texans improve from 3-13 without him in 2022 to 10-7 with him in 2023. He even became the youngest player in NFL history to win a playoff game thanks to a stellar wild card round performance against the Cleveland Browns, in which he completed 76.2% of his passes for 274 yards and 3 touchdowns. He really did it all as a rookie, earning himself the prestigious NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year award. The bottom line is that the Texans got a franchise-changing slam dunk of a pick at second overall, whereas the Panthers, well, signed themselves up for another heavy dose of pain and misery. A lot had to happen to even give the Carolina Panthers the opportunity to select a new quarterback with the first overall pick of that 2023 NFL draft. So let's remind ourselves real quickly of how we even got here. Prior to the 2022 season, Carolina decided to bring in Baker Mayfield to see if he could revive his career in a new city. Spoiler, he couldn't. The remainder of the year saw a mix of Mayfield, PJ Walker, and Sam Darnold earn a combined record of 7-10 for the season. This was of course a frustrating record, landing the Panthers the 9th overall pick, which was just out of reach for the top quarterbacks in the draft. The Panthers had looked well on track for a top pick, but 4 wins out of their last 6 games of the year improved their record enough and worsened their draft pick to 9th. Nevertheless, General Manager Scott Fitterer knew that this team needed an answer at quarterback and that they needed to improve their draft position to find that answer. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and to a lesser extent, of course, Will Levis were all exciting quarterback prospects at the time, but the chance of any of them being there at 9 outside of Levis were slim. So Fitterer got on the phone to Chicago and agreed to send them a haul for the first overall pick. The Bears had endured a miserable year with a 3-13 record, but were willing to trade the first overall pick as they were eager to give quarterback Justin Fields another shot. In exchange for giving up the first overall pick, the Chicago Bears moved down to 9th overall, in addition to picking up another second rounder in 2023, a first rounder in 2024, a second rounder in 2025, and wide receiver DJ Moore. It was a lot for Carolina to give up, but the reward was the ability to pick any quarterback they liked from the 2023 class. The other significant player in this story, of course, is the Houston Texans. They also had an interesting journey to their 2023 draft pick. Of course, with Davis Mills under center, and the Texans slipped to a dismal 2-13-1 record, and with just 1 game left in the season, a Week 18 loss to Indianapolis would guarantee them the first overall pick of the 2023 draft. Instead, Davis Mills completed an extraordinary game-winning drive, which included a touchdown pass on 4th and 20, with just 58 seconds left on the clock. Trailing by 30 points down to 31, the Texans opted to go for 2, leaving the commentator to say, well, this play determines who will pick first in the draft. Mills fired another dart in the process to Arkins, and the Texans won the game, relegating them to the 2nd overall pick in the process. Fans didn't know whether to jump for joy or curse Mills for taking away the opportunity to have their pick of the upcoming class of quarterbacks. So with the season in the books and Carolina having pulled the trigger on a mega trade, the 2023 NFL Draft was locked in as Carolina picking first and Houston picking second. Everyone knew that a quarterback was going first, but which one? Bryce Young was widely regarded as the top option, entering the draft as a Heisman Trophy winner and a dynamic playmaker from Alabama. He was fresh off a dazzling college career that saw him pass for 8,356 yards, 80 touchdowns to just 12 interceptions, despite only playing 2 years as a starter. His average quarterback rating of 165 shows just how dominant he was in Tuscaloosa. Draft analysts lauded him for his impressive football IQ and pro-ready quarterback skill set. He was a quick and accurate passer of the ball, and he threw with anticipation, and he made sensible decisions. He could also make defensive pay with his legs, with his only knock being his small stature and slender frame. This clearly wasn't too much of a concern, though, with the majority of draft boards and mock drafts having Bryce Young right at the top. Obviously, the other quarterback to be regularly mocked in the top 2 picks was Stroud. Unlike Young, Stroud was a prototypical quarterback size, standing at 6'3", 218 pounds. Stroud was considered arguably the best pure thrower of the football, with impeccable footwork and mechanics, and of course pinpoint accuracy. The biggest concerns with Stroud were his creativity outside of the pocket, his play under pressure, and his infamous S2 cognitive test results. Stroud had a perception of being the safer pick, but with a lower ceiling, in comparison to the higher upside of Young. The two quarterbacks spent most of the draft process as a consensus top 2 picks, but some last-minute controversies appeared to have sunk Stroud's bid. First and foremost, there was the aforementioned S2 result. This test is designed to measure the ability of players to make split-second decisions, consisting of several exercises that test for perception, speed, visual search, efficiency, trajectory prediction, impulse control, and improvisation. All of these traits are particularly important for quarterbacks, of course, which meant that the S2 test has typically been a big part of quarterback prospect discussions over recent years. These results are meant to remain confidential, but the co-founder of the test, Brandon Alley, alluded to the fact that players such as Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen all tested in the 90s, as did Brock Purdy, who had just exceeded expectations as a 7th-round pick in the year before. When Alley was asked about Purdy's high score on the test, he said, "The game will never be too fast for Brock. I don't think he'll have any trouble adjusting." All of this suggested that the S2 test was a pretty good thing to factor into when evaluating quarterbacks, which is why it was such big news when the S2 results of the 2023 quarterback class was leaked. Sitting at the top of the league leaderboard was Bryce Young with a whopping 98%, and bringing up the rear was Stroud, who could only manage an 18th percentile result. Young had beaten the scores of all the best quarterbacks currently operating in the NFL, and many of the other great retired quarterbacks. From that point onwards, Young was all but locked into the number 1 overall pick, and the narrative surrounding Stroud all of a sudden changed to how far he could fall. One executive even told Go Along that this is like red alert, you can't take a guy like that. This is why I have Stroud as a bust. On top of the S2 test news, questions were raised in the media about Stroud's character. NFL insider Michael Lombardi suggested that Stroud was not an easy guy to coach, before another media figure, an ex-quarterback, Brady Quinn, accused him of bailing on a commitment to help out and attend at the Manning Passing Academy while he was at Ohio State. Quinn told the Pick 6 podcast that Stroud's alleged ghosting of football royalty was a character concern, and that it could lead to some teams looking at Anthony Richardson as the next best quarterback instead. On top of this, against the unfortunate association of Ohio State quarterbacks not faring particularly well in the NFL. Unfortunately, Justin Fields, for example, didn't get off to the best start. And as a result, there looked like there was a genuine chance that Anthony Richardson could go ahead of Stroud, and there was even a late surge in the betting markets to suggest that Will Levis was going to be the next quarterback to hear his name called after Bryce Young. Boy, were they wrong. When the night of the draft came around and Carolina was officially put on the clock, there was very little drama surrounding who they might pick. Bryce Young's college production was off the charts. He was a Heisman Trophy winner, he excelled at the quarterback essentials, and he had smashed the S2 test. He was a proven winner, and it was such a strong resume that there appeared to be very little concern about his 5'10", 200-pound frame. Having traded 4 picks in DJ Moore for the first overall pick, the Carolina Panthers officially used that pick to draft Bryce Young to make him the face of their franchise. While the common perception among the media and draft analysts was that Bryce was the consensus #1 overall selection, it was later suggested that Carolina was actually keying in on Stroud as their guy, or to be exact, the scouting team was only to be directed toward Bryce by David Tepper, the owner. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk reported in November 2023 that Young was Tepper's choice and that coaches and the front office staff felt in line to avoid ruffling feathers. Coaches always have to be careful about what they say in public, but it was pretty interesting when then head coach Frank Reich used one of his press conferences to detail Tepper's hands-on approach. He said that Tepper's philosophy is to be very engaged with the team activities, and when you combine that information with some of the wild and wacky things that come out of Carolina in recent years, you get a pretty clear idea that the owner may well be to blame for some of it. And in terms of the 2023 NFL Draft, it sounds like CJ Stroud would be a Carolina Panther right now if David Tepper had decided to keep himself to himself a bit more. However, with Bryce Young headed to Carolina, the real drama of the draft began now, as all eyes turned to Houston. This was a team who had missed out on the opportunity to pick first overall because of their dramatic Week 18 victory over Indianapolis, and many believe that victory had cost them big time. The Texans decided to ignore the noise surrounding Stroud and stick to the early mock draft predictions, selecting him second overall. They then raised eyebrows by trading up once more to pick third overall as well, where they selected Will Anderson Jr. in the space of 2 picks. The Houston Texans had landed the pillar of their offense and the pillar of their defense. Now, it was just a case of waiting for the regular season to see if they were any good. For Carolina and Houston, there was a lot on the line in 2023, as is often the case in the draft, for quarterbacks selected near each other are intertwined for much of their careers, with franchises constantly being judged, not just for the performance of their quarterback, but also the ones drafted around them. Picking the right guy can change the fortunes of a franchise, whereas picking the wrong one can result in turmoil and lost jobs. As things stand at the early stages of the 2024 season, it is unfortunately already pretty clear that this fallout has already taken place. After a 2023 campaign in which Bryce Young threw for just 2,877 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, general manager Scott Fitterer and head coach Frank Reich were both fired. The team had played so badly that they earned the first overall pick in the 2024 draft, but wasn't even able to use it as it belonged to Chicago as part of the package for Young. The first overall pick turned into Caleb Williams, one of the most exciting quarterback prospects we have ever seen, who looks on track to bring Chicago to relevancy again. Without the help of the 2024 draft's first overall pick, the Carolina Panthers got off to a dismal start to the season, and Bryce Young was benched in favor of veteran Andy Dalton just 2 games. Ouch. Whereas over in Houston, CJ Stroud delivered a record-breaking rookie season, led his team to the playoffs, and is now hunting down a Super Bowl with a loaded Texans roster. Draft day decisions define franchises, and Carolina will be struggling with this one for a while. There is no doubt that CJ Stroud was the rightful first overall pick. Perhaps the more interesting question to ask is, would Houston have taken him there if they had lost their Week 18 clash with Indy and locked in the first overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft? You let us know that in the comments section.